Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we'll be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, chapter 24, the philosophy of Sāṅkhya. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharidhari. join us for Mangalacharan prayers together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet Sharatam Swakatha Kṛṣṇa Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantastoya Bhadrani Vidunmoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavti Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Please join us in the recitation of the first verse. And even though there is translation and purport, but this particular chapter is full of blessings, and the time is also very auspicious. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 24, The Philosophy of Sāṅkhya, Text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Atate Sampravakshami
Athate Sampravakshami
Sāṅkhya Purvera Vinishchitam
Sāṅkhyam Purvair Vinishchitam
Yad Vigyaya Puman Sadhyo
Yad Vigyaya Puman Sadhyo
Jahyad Vaikalpikam Brahmam.
Jahyad Vaikalpikam Brahmam.
Please.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Athate Sampravakshami
Atate Sampravakshami
Sāṅkhyam Purvair Vinishchitam
Sāṅkhyam Purva Vinishchitam
Yad Vigyaya Puman Sadhyo
Yad Vigyaya Puman Sadhyo
Jahyad Vaikalpikam Brahmam
Jayad Vaikalpikam Brahmam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said,
The Supreme Personality of Godhead
Atha.
said, Atha,
now,
now,
te,
te,
unto you,
unto you,
Sampravakshami,
Sampravakshyami,
I shall speak,
I shall speak,
Sāṅkhyam,
Sāṅkhyam,
the knowledge of the evolution of the elements of creation,
the knowledge of the evolution of the elements of creation,
Purvahe,
Purve,
by previous authorities,
by previous authorities,
Vinishchitam,
Vinishchitam,
ascertained,
Yat,
which,
which,
Vigyaya,
Vigyaya,
knowing,
Puman,
a person, Sadhyaha,
Sadhya,
immediately, Jayat, can give up, Vikalpikam, based on false duality, Brahman,
Brahman,
the illusion.
the illusion.
Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Kṛṣṇa said, Now I shall describe to you the science of Sāṅkhya, which has been perfectly established by ancient authorities. By understanding this science, a person can immediately give up the illusion of material duality. Purport. In the previous chapter, the Lord explained that one can give up material duality by controlling the mind and fixing it in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. This chapter describes the Sāṅkhya system, in which the difference between matter and spirit is elaborately explained. By hearing this knowledge, one can easily separate the mind from material contamination and fix it on the spiritual platform in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. The Sāṅkhya philosophy system mentioned here is that presented by Lord Kapila in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and not the atheistic Sāṅkhya presented later by materialists and Mayavadis. The material elements which emanate from the potency of the Lord evolve in a progressive sequence. One should not foolishly think that such evolution begins from an original material element without the assistance of the Lord. This speculative theory is generated from the false ego of conditioned life and constitutes gross ignorance, unaccepted to the personality of Godhead and His followers. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Please join us for Guru Pranati to invoke blessings, to seek blessings of the spiritual masters and the acharyas. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangvam Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatadham Vande Shri Gurum Dīnataranam Hare Kṛṣṇa Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees. So today is a very auspicious day, and this chapter is also very auspicious for us because here we learn how to eternally serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How we can serve the Supreme Lord. So today we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, chapter 24, the philosophy of Sāṅkhya. And as we read in the purport, that this philosophy was initially spoken by Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Now this is a very interesting aspect because later on there was another personality by the name Kapila, and he presented the Sāṅkhya philosophy from materialistic perspective. So that has been disregarded by the devotees and even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And today also happens to be a very auspicious day. There are actually three amazing things happening today. First is today's Bhadra Purnima, so which is a very auspicious time. Second is, today is the day that Srila Prabhupada got his, this is the 60th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's taking sannyas. And so, this is also the day on which, somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, are you going to America? Right? It was a big deal because twice before Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had sent his disciples to the West. And they had failed in their attempt. And when they returned, Srila Prabhupada had gone to pick them up from the airport. And they were talking about how the Western people are meat eaters and they are so much engaged in sense gratification and so many other abominable activities that it is not possible. They they would not listen to the responses and they could not find the answers to the questions the Western people had. And when Srila Prabhupada heard this, he was constantly thinking, what is it that you cannot answer from the Shastras? Everything is answerable. Yet at the same time, he realized that he was the personality, that he was the general who was just waiting for the right time to come to America. So at the time when he was asked, are you going to America? He replied, no. Srimad Bhagavatam is going to America. I am going with it. Such an amazing deep response. Because truly Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So he even took himself as a messenger or a carrier. Just like Uddhav is carrying the message of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa that is being discussed in Uddhav Gita from chapter 6 to chapter 29 of Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto. So when he is taking this message, which is known as Uddhav Gita, messenger is taking this message. So Uddhav is the messenger. And Lord Krishna has given this message, so he is just a postman. And Srila Prabhupada always gives this example that we are just postmen. We just take, just like a postman takes the letter, and then at the destination to the recipients, he reveals the knowledge as it is. Right? That's why Srila Prabhupada, he named Bhagavad Gita as it is. So as it is here means that it has the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, as Lord Krishna intended. So that's why he named it as it is. It is not meant to be kept on the shelf as it is and not to be taken off. And also when Srila Prabhupada, when he brought Srimad Bhagavatam, actually he had this first canto in 3 books forms, and so this is what he brought to America, and then afterwards he continued to translate second canto onward. So today is a very auspicious day, and we'll be talking about the blessings that comes with Bhadra Purnima. Today's lesson, the philosophy of Sāṅkhya, is very interesting. So, one of the important aspects is that Lord Krishna in the previous chapter has said that one can, with the proper knowledge, like we studied in chapter 23, Bhikshu Gita, the song of the Avanti Brahman. So that is also known as Bhikshu Gita, where he was just singing when he had taken sannyas that whatever sinful reactions, whatever suffering he is going through, it is all because of the past deeds. And we also heard that by that he could only control himself, but a devotee engages in devotional service and can experience transcendental bliss. So another aspect became very evident there in that chapter, that if we don't engage in devotional service, we cannot experience transcendental bliss. Right? So there are wonderful analogies being given by Srila Prabhupada. So again, he gave this example, and of course it's in the Shastras also. Lord Krishna also reveals this, that when we have hands and legs, and there is also, as children, we were hearing this story, that hands and legs, they were working all the time, eyes, ears, and they were like, but stomach doesn't do anything. Why are we feeding the stomach? Right? We all have heard this story. If not, I'll cover it quickly. So they decided they don't want to give any food to the stomach, rather they want to put all the food on themselves, right? The hand would say, okay, I'll put some food here, I'll put some food on my ears, on my forehead, on my cheeks, and maybe the tongue will take it, but it will not take it down. But what happened over a period of time? They started losing energy. The legs could not walk, the hands would not lift anything. It was very difficult to open the eyes, everything was hurting, the whole body was hurting, and they were thinking, why is this happening? Because they were not following the process. So it is very important for us to understand that we have to follow the process. And the process is that we have to provide food to the stomach, and from stomach it is very nicely dissipated to all the limbs of the body, so that they can become strong and can do their normal function. So similarly, when we seek happiness, anand bhaya abhyasat, so we are all seeking happiness. But how do we get happiness is also in a given process. So when we don't follow the process, we may get sparks in the dark. So that sparks in the dark is also given in scriptures in a very funny manner, that a person is being pushed by a more strong person in the waters, and he is literally drowning. Yet at the same time, the moment his life is, his pran is about to leave his body, at that time he is brought up and he has this breath of relief, and before he could even take the proper breath of release, he is put back in the waters. Sometimes that breath of release is considered as happiness, but that is not happiness. That is just a break between all the sufferings, right? So we have to be very, very careful to understand the difference between transcendental bliss, the transcendental joy that devotee feels,
and the material happiness. Material happiness is only causing agitation. And such agitation could, only make us angry. So, again, kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhava. So, we can even fall down from the mode of passion because we are seeking these fruitive activities for sense enjoyment. Yes. So, it's given in Bhagavad Gita that, when we are attached to sense gratification, in the due course of time, anger arises, and anger is in a mode of ignorance. And ignorance is like darkness, and so it is very difficult for us to overcome that. Now let's quickly cover the blessing. So in this particular chapter, the blessing is that Lord Kṛṣṇa is saying that He is the perfect seer of everything material and spiritual, right? He is the Bhoktaram Yagatapsam Sarvalok Maheshwaram. Surhidam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa is revealing, and this is also known as peace formula. Srila Prabhupada called it peace formula. Bhoktaram Yagatapasam. So He is the beneficiary of all sacrifices. So whatever sacrifice we perform in our life, they are meant to satisfy Him. They should be dovetailed to satisfy Him, not to satisfy the fallen soldiers that we may have. So again, sometimes we feel we are making so much sacrifices going to job and doing the work, and then we are taking on so much hardship for our children, for our family. That is a twisted mindset. In reality, this will only cause frustration in due course of time. Rather, if we were to think that yes, I am doing it for Lordship, and all my family members are actually Vaishnavas, Jivera Surupaya Kṛṣṇa Nityadas. So we are all living entities, and the living entities are eternal servants of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So I am doing all my activities, all my duties, my occupational duties to satisfy Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, which also means to be, able to take care of my fellow living entity. Because if Lord Kṛṣṇa, He says, Aham Bij Pradha Pita, so I am the seed-giving father. He is the Supreme Father. So we are all brothers and sisters. So from that particular perspective, we should take care of each other. And when we look from this perspective and keep Lord Kṛṣṇa in the center and very nicely have loving exchanges with our family members, then everything is blissful. Sometimes people say, it is very interesting that you go to work and you are very polite with people at work, and you are paying attention to every single person, whoever is asking a question, who wants to hear your opinion, and you want to also reciprocate by asking their opinion and consider those. But then when it comes to home, you come home and you are talking to the family members, you are ignorant, you are looking there and talking here, and you are not paying attention most of the time. So again, those kind of behavior, and then what to do? So that is because of material consciousness, because at home we feel like we are the controllers. At work, we understand that we are not the supreme controller, other people are also controllers. So that kind of like limits our activities, and we have to be conscious at work. So we should be equally conscious at home, so that we don't even commit janaprad, we don't even offend anyone. Rather, we should be very considerate, we should be mindful of our circumstances. And the science of Sāṅkhya Yoga, again, is being elaborately explained in this chapter, and we'll come to that. But there are some amazing lessons that we should understand, which will help us understand this chapter very well. So when we are interacting with other, family members, our friends and other devotees, we should be very grateful, first of all, because Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals that all this happiness that one gets is because of the association. And if everyone is a devotee, then we automatically have devotee association. And what do devotees do? Macchitta madgat prana bodhayanta parasparam tushyanti kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So, when my devotees are constantly devoted to me, he's saying, I'm paraphrasing, this is in Bhagavad Gita, this is the Chatushloki Gita. So it's the second verse of Chatushloki Gita, where Lord Kṛṣṇa says that my devotees, they have their life surrendered unto me, and they're constantly thinking of me, and they discuss about me, and so in this manner, tushyanti cha ramanti cha, they feel satisfaction, tushyanti, tushti, right? And ramanti, and they have, experience transcendental bliss. they've become very happy. So both of them are there. So peace formula, yes, we become stable. But peace formula is like beneficiary of all our sacrifices is Lord Shri Krishna. And that He is the supreme proprietor of all material and spiritual universes. So we should understand that everything we have received is from Him. And then He is the best friend. He is our well-wisher. He is our benefactor. So everything that happens in our life is because of His love for us. And there's nothing that bad happens in our life. However, because we are conditioned, we look at situations as happiness and distress from the dual perspective, duality. We think of hot and cold, happiness and distress, suffering and pleasure, pain and pleasure, light and dark. So this is because of the covering, the conditioned stage, which causes us to look at this world as dual, filled with dualities. And that's why it's called material world, because we are looking at it materially, thinking it's separate from Krishna. If we truly understand that this material world is an expansion, it's an external energy of Lord Shri Krishna, so it has its purpose, right? Every energy has its purpose. Just like electricity, when properly transmitted and used by the tools in the proper manner, can emit light, just like in the case of light bulb. So similarly, we have to understand that energy has a purpose. So what is the purpose of material energy, you would ask? So material energy has two purposes. First purpose is that there are living entities who have this desire to enjoy away from Lord Krishna. So they need to enjoy, but then in Krishna Lok, in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, everyone is seeking to please Lord Shri Krishna. Yet at the same time, if somebody wants to just enjoy, be in the center, right? That is not possible there, because that person will become frustrated. So Lord Krishna, because of His compassion, He has made an arrangement as a separate place where the living entities can, seek to enjoy. And that's why they have been given false ego. So this false ego is like another subtle universe we create internally. So yes, the material universe is there, and this material universe provides us this conditioned body, and this conditioned body comes with 3 subtle elements and 5 gross elements, right? False ego, intelligence and mind, these are the subtle elements. And what are the gross elements, the 5 gross elements? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Why did I say that? Because these fingers, they actually designate. When we say solid, right, that's earth. When a kid says, I got to go, so this is representing water. And when we become angry, this finger rises, fire. And then when we put tilak, the initial part is, we put it with this finger because it's representing air. And this is the largest. Ether is the largest of the 5 elements, gross elements. So this is ether. So the 5 elements are represented in our fingers, in our hand with fingers. And they are used in this manner as well. So, having provided this so that the living entities can enjoy without Him, forgetting Krishna, they can enjoy it, thinking themselves to be the center of the universe. So every person who is conditioned normally thinks that the world revolves around them. And that is the feeling, sometimes we do feel. And that is the influence so that we can enjoy and carry out our various desires. Yet at the same time, these desires, if they are not associated with Lord Shri Krishna, then it's only illusion. And so we are ourselves putting ourselves in illusion without relating it with Lord Shri Krishna, and this becomes the cause of our suffering. Because in darkness, what is what? You don't know. And you are constantly, stumbling across different things and trying to predict what's what. In that state, it's very difficult, and the only thing we get in the return is suffering. And janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam. So we are constantly suffering in the cycle of birth, death, old age and disease. These are the various kind of sufferings in the cycle of birth and death. We see that. So now, to be able to understand this concept, it's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada talked about this story where there was one Nawab. And this Nawab, he had a very opulent house, and his servant would clean up the house. So one day he was shaving in another room, and suddenly when the servant was cleaning a chandelier, one of the crystal became loose from the hook and fell on the ground. And you can understand, means again, if there is one crystal missing, it changes the look of the chandelier. So as it came to the ground and crashed, the servant understood that Nawab has heard it and he is going to get punished for this. Nawab came running. Yes. He said, what happened? What happened? What was that sound? He said, and the servant was shaking. He was like, oh, Nawab Sahab, please forgive me. By mistake, a crystal came loose and fell on the ground. Nawab said, oh, that was such a wonderful noise, such a beautiful, such a sweet noise. What a tinkling noise it was. Drop another one. The servant is shocked. He was like, what? Nawab says, I'm asking you to drop another crystal. The servant, understanding that this is what the master wants, the chandelier belongs to Nawab. Servant is serving Nawab, right? And Nawab is asking, drop another crystal. The servant has to follow. So he takes another crystal and drops it. The crystal comes and it shatters on the ground, making this nice tingling sound of crashing. And Nawab is saying, oh yes, yes, very nice, drop another one. The servant is like just falling, dropping another one. And when it crashes onto the ground, making that tinkling sound, Nawab says, oh, very nice, drop another one. So Nawab kept asking the servant to drop one after another, and the servant kept dropping. And every time it would crash, what would Nawab say? Oh, very nice. In this way, all the crystals were shattered on the ground. Now, the lesson is, whose chandelier was it? Nawab's chandelier. Whose servant, was it? This man? Nawab's servant. And if Nawab is asking something, there is nothing wrong in it, right? So, who is the supreme proprietor of our bodies? Lord Kṛṣṇa. So everybody in this material world, in this material universe, we have received these material bodies, and who is the supreme proprietor? Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. We are only, like renting it. So, if something happens in due course of time, because of the cycle, it is just because of time, kal. And Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, time I am the devourer of all things. So in due course of time, everything gets destroyed. But from Sāṅkhya philosophy, it changes the perspective. Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals that actually everything is just transforming. So that becomes important for us to understand. So everything is taking, changing shapes. And there are beautiful analogies given in this particular chapter. Yet at the same time, when someone becomes conditioned with this body, they may think that, oh, this is my body and I'm going to take care of my body. Yes, you should take care of it, but don't go to the extreme. Don't forget the main purpose of the body, right? Sometimes people, they buy a car, right? And when they buy the car, they are so much into making the car look great, putting so much focus on the outer covering of the car that they forget that inside the engine is going bad day after day because it also needs servicing. And if you don't get the engine serviced, what would happen in due course of time? You may be keeping the car very nicely shining outside, but inside you are not taking care of proper service, the regular service schedules and so forth. Well, things are gonna get clogged inside. And in due course of time, your car will stop working. So that is very true for our body as well, especially for the soul, right? So we, as living entities, have to take care of the body, yes, and also have to take care of the soul. So if we don't take care of the soul, otherwise, at times in Shastras, in the Ishopanishad, it is even said that the killer of the soul, one who does not take through devotional service, does not do the right things. So again, it is very important for us to understand what are the right things. And this is where the second purpose of material energy comes. So the first purpose, yes, we understood. That, living entities who have desires separate from Kṛṣṇa, they want to enjoy, yes. So Lord Kṛṣṇa makes this arrangement. Now the second purpose is Lord being compassionate. He sees that the living entities are suffering in this material world, and He wants to bring them back, and that these living entities have understood that they are suffering, so I would like to reclaim them. So He creates a path for us. Being compassionate Father, He creates a path. By taking this path, we can go back home, back to Godhead, where we will be eternally happy, right? There's no more, being thrown in the middle of a ocean and being hit by waves one after another, and we are taking little breaths for relief, but constantly struggling. That should not be our state. Rather, Lord Kṛṣṇa says that He is a swift deliverer. Tesham evanukampatam. So again, aham ajnanam jam tamaha nashami atma bhavasto jnanadipena bhasvata. So Lord says that because of my anukampa, because of my compassion, I take compassion on my devotees, and they are in the darkness, so with the light of knowledge, I can drive away the darkness. Aham ajnana jamtama nashyami atma bhavastu jnanadipena bhasvata. So again, jnanadipena. So the knowledge, light of knowledge, can drive away the darkness of ignorance. Such a beautiful analogy. This is also from Chatushloki. This is the first verse of Chatushloki Gita. And so we should understand that the second purpose is that by taking the proper knowledge, and this knowledge has been given as Sāṅkhya philosophy, as devotional, bhakti yoga and so forth, devotional service. So when we take to this knowledge, we should take to it the way Lord Kṛṣṇa desires, and not we can choose the way we desire, because we have to follow the process, right? So we have to follow the process in the right manner. And so when the root of the tree is watered, all the twigs and branches and the leaves and the flowers and the fruits will nicely, get nutrition. So who's the root? In this particular scenario, it is very evident. Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the root. He is the origin and also the end. So the beginning and the end of this material universe, everything comes from Him, and everything finally goes back into Him, merges back into Him. Now when we talk about everything comes from Him and merges back into Him, there is a very nice analogy being given in the Shastras of a spider. Just like a spider creates a web, right, with its saliva, it creates this web, and then later on, after some time, it just takes the web itself, it eats it up. So it just, from the source it came, it always goes back in there. So this is also the way, Hare Krishna, in the material world, things, these material universes, they emanate from the pores and the breathing of Mahavishnu. And finally, with the exhalation, they come into existence. With the inhalation, they go back into Him. So when we think about, when we breathe in everything and the air goes back in, so similarly, Lord Kṛṣṇa, all the universes, they go back into Him in the form of Mahavishnu with His breathing. Now that is the primary creation. The secondary creation is what has been described in this chapter. But before we go into this chapter, it is very important for us to understand that Srila Prabhupada, he also had a very small book on the teachings of Lord Kapila. And he said there was another subtitle he wanted to give, the son of Devahuti. So his disciples were confused. He was like saying, why Prabhupada? We understand the teachings of Lord Kapila. So that should be good enough. No, he said, but it is very important to say that this Kapil is the son of Devahuti. Because there was another Kapil that occurred later on, right? He took birth. So this other Kapil said that matter comes from matter. Well, that is not the true philosophy. That is not what Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals. This is the difference between descending knowledge and ascending knowledge. Descending knowledge is coming from the Supreme Seer, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, who knows everything as it is and He is revealing it to us for our benefit. And ascending knowledge is one is trying to, interpret this material world and thinking it may be so and that may be so. If this is this, then that has to be that. So they are, this is either based on perception or anuman. So there are three ways we can acquire knowledge. First is with our perception. Now this perception is because of our senses. The senses are gross and they are limited. So there are four defects, right, in conditioned life. First is our senses are imperfect. So when we perceive something to acquire knowledge, it is imperfect. It is partial. So a lot is lost in translation, as we understand. So when we try to understand things, we interpret it based on our context. And we may not see things as they are. We may not see reality. Rather, we reflect that reality based on our conditions, our understanding of that time, of that situation. Second is, what's the second defect? Human error. We make mistakes. So again, why try to do something and perceive something where we make mistakes? So this anuman prama is not very good. By perceiving knowledge through perception is not very good. Third is there is a propensity to cheat. And gamblers do that all the time. And sometimes we say that, okay, yesterday I carried out my day so and so. Today I'm going to carry out my day exactly in the same manner. But it never happens. Why? Because there are other factors. So it's never, in our control. And then last but not the least is, we have propensity to be illusion, imperfect senses, human error, and propensity to cheat. So these four aspects are there, the four defects of conditioned life. Second one is anuman prama. So this is hypothesis. So if you are thinking as a hypothesis, how could it be perfect knowledge? So you cannot have that. Then the third one is Shabda Pramāṇ. Shabda Pramāṇ comes from bona fide scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. And this knowledge is perfect knowledge because it is coming from the Supreme Seer, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And this knowledge is absolute in nature. It's not relative knowledge. So there is no aspect of duality from this knowledge. Yet at the same time, materialists, they become very proud. But when they take to devotional service, the first thing is they wonder as why they are so proud and how to become humble, right? We all understand that devotional service, when you perform, to be able to experience transcendental bliss, there are four things actually are very important. First is humility, second is tolerance, third is always ready to give all respects to others, and fourth is never expecting any respect from others. When we have these four aspects and keeping Lord Kṛṣṇa in the center, we serve Him as He desires, as our spiritual master engages us in serving Him, then we can automatically experience transcendental bliss and the pride would go away. Yet at the same time, Srila Prabhupada, when he was in LA, he was asked this question, that how can I not be proud? How can I become humble? So Srila Prabhupada, so it was His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he raised this question. So Srila Prabhupada, he said, his response was very deep, so just try to understand. He said that they are unlimited material universes. And our material universe is a very small universe. Because our Brahma, he only has 4 heads, right? And there are other universes where Brahmas have hundreds heads, thousands heads, 10,000 heads, because they require this. And Brahma is also known as soul of the material universe. And when he is the soul, there has to be a super soul, right? And that is none other than Lord Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So from his Garbha comes the lotus flower on which Lord Brahma, who is also known as self-born, Aja, he is present. And so the soul and super soul are always there in the heart of the universal form. So now you can imagine this material world, when Lord Kṛṣṇa reveals the universal form, that can also be put in perception properly. in the right perspective, we can see not perception, but as Lord Krishna reveals in Bhagavad Gita. So we have to understand how to eternally serve Lord Krishna. The first aspect is that we should be humble, we should be tolerant, and we should be serving as Lord Krishna desires, right? If you are celebrating a birthday and you expect a specific kind of gift, but somebody gives you a gift that they like, but not what you like. They ask you, what would you like to have on your gift on this birthday? And you say, you know what, today on my birthday I would like to have Srimad Bhagavatam. And they say, okay. And then they go around and they say, oh, Gulliver Travels seems to be very nice, adventurous book, and they really liked it. So they go and buy the book they like, and then they give it to you. Are you going to be happy? Will you be interested? You actually ask for Srimad Bhagavatam. You want Srimad Bhagavatam. You expect Srimad Bhagavatam. So similarly, when Lord Krishna, He wants our love, we have to give Him our love. But at the same time, not just in words, but rather in our actions. Love is always love when it's in the mood of giving, not in the mood of taking. And on the other side, it is being accepted, and then we receive. So when we take one step toward Krishna, Lord Krishna takes how many steps towards us? Shastras say 10 steps towards us. Our steps are puny steps, right? Maybe a meter long. But Lord's steps are amazingly large. Just in 2 steps, He can cover the whole universe. That's why when we are in this material universe, in the ocean of nascence struggling, we call out to Lord Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Calling out to the Lordship to engage us in His devotional service. And when we serve Him very nicely, Lord Krishna says He is a swift deliverer from this ocean of nascence. Teshamaham sabuddhata mrityu sansara sagarat bhavamina chiratpatha maya veshita chetasam. So Lord Krishna says that from this mrityu sansara sagara, so again Jan Mrityu, your birth and death, this cycle we are in, right, being conditioned, from this ocean of nascence, He can quickly deliver us. He can lift us up and take us back home, back to Godhead. All we have to do is take shelter. So this is also, when I was reading this, that Lord is a swift deliverer, it was also a very deep thought to realize that when Srila Prabhupada was saying, no, Srimad Bhagavatam is going and He is coming along with it. So it was so deep because Srila Prabhupada is revealing that we are always supposed to be accompanying the Lord, right? As where He wants to go to deliver the other living entities. Yet at the same time, following the instructions of our spiritual master, we should preach with that aspect. So we were talking about Shabda Praman, and then as we continue to discuss Tamal Krishna Maharaja's incident, so Srila Prabhupada is saying that of these many, many universes, we are in a very small universe. And in this universe, this small material universe, there are unlimited planets. There are so many planets, right? And we are on this small planet Earth. And on this Earth, there are so many countries. And we are in this one country called, one continent called America. And on this, in America, there are nations and many cities. So of many states and many cities, we are in this one city, right? Los Angeles. And in this Los Angeles, there are so many streets, hundreds of streets, and we are in this one street. And on this street, there are so many houses, and we are in this one house. And in this one house, there is a man, he is thinking, I'm very important. So this is a way to understand that how can we be important if we are so insignificant? Yet at the same time, for people for living entities who want to enjoy, who wants to seek sense gratification in this material world, engaging in fruitive activities, For their arrangement, Lord has given them this false ego where they create their own virtual world. So the virtual world in the computer world came afterwards. We already had virtual world in our heads. Yet at the same time, a devotee is constantly thinking that I don't want to live in this virtual world. I want to live in the transcendental world. And this transcendental world has been revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is where we take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So devotional service is taking shelter at his lotus feet and following his lotus feet. Just by taking the boat of his lotus feet, we can go back home, back to Godhead very easily. So in this particular case, today we are covering in Sāṅkhya philosophy some of the important analogies. So one of the analogies which is covered in this case is that once real knowledge is covered by fruitive activities, we discussed this at length, and mental speculation, perceptions like we were talking about. And what's the activity of mind? Mind has this behavior, everything has its nature, right? So mind is born of mode of goodness, not mode of passion. It is intelligence that's born in the mode of mode of passion, sorry. And false ego has the influences of three modes, but false ego itself is born of the mode of ignorance. And then for the being influenced by the three modes comes the various other aspects, where all the gross elements are in the mode of ignorance. That's why, it is said that these gross elements, they are jada, they are immovable on their own. It has to be a living entity engaged in moving them. So even to move a rock, we require a living entity with consciousness to be able to move it. So what to talk about these planets who are floating in the sky and nicely carrying out their due course. So Lord Kṛṣṇa says that it is because of his fear that the sun follows its path. It's because of the fear the fire burns. It's because of the fear of him Indra sends out clouds. So everything is going on in this universe, in this material universe, because of the fear of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Because he is the supreme controller and everyone is serving him. So all the demigods are in the mode of goodness. Yet at the same time, it is said that initially when mind is there and the intelligence comes, the 11 deities, they manifest because of the mode of passion to engage us. So that mode of passion is to engage us in activities. That's where intelligence is always engaged in various kind of activities with respect to this material world. Yet at the same time, Lord Kṛṣṇa has revealed that mind is your biggest friend, can be our biggest friend, or can be our worst enemy. So it is very important for us to control the mind, because just by engaging our mind, we can attain perfection in this very life, right? Manastrayati iti mantra. So one that delivers the mind is mantra, and of all the mantras, the best is Mahamantra. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. And there are so many glories, being of Lordship there, where when we sing these prayers, we are able to control our mind and our heart is filled with so many wonderful pastimes. So that's why we don't seek any speculation, rather we seek the descriptions given in the Shastras to brighten up our life with the light of knowledge. So just like sun, when it rises, it quickly dissipates the fog away. Similarly, when Lord Kṛṣṇa, when we are able to see Lord Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Controller in the right knowledge, all the darkness of due to our ignorance is driven away. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So, there is a very nice analogy given in this particular chapter, where Lord Kṛṣṇa is talking about gold and earth. They are originally existing as ingredients, right? Yet at the same time, someone can use gold to make nice ornaments, make nice bracelet, rings, necklaces and so forth. And people would not refer to it as gold, people would refer to it as those ornaments. Similarly, earth is there, from earth comes clay, and from clay people can, various kind of utensils can be made, plates, saucers and so forth. Yet at the same time, if the plate breaks or the saucer breaks, again it comes back to its form as earth. Which means, if it's in the beginning it's earth, if it at the end it's earth, then it has to be earth in the middle state as well, when it was having a form of saucer or a plate. Similarly, when the ornaments, they break and they're, melted away, at that time they come back in the form of gold. Which means, if in the beginning it was gold, at the end it was gold, so that means in the middle also it has to be gold. So that has been revealed by Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa to Uddhava, that yes, everything comes from me, so I expand, and yet at the same time I enter into everything. That doesn't mean that everything becomes Kṛṣṇa. Everything is associated with Kṛṣṇa. So we need to be in proper consciousness, understanding our position, right? And then we can understand that if everything is coming from Kṛṣṇa and everything is emanating as potencies and energies of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa as his opulence, then we have to understand the purpose of everything. So the purpose of material nature, twofold purposes we discussed. First one is, for the living entities who want to enjoy in this material world, they are given this chance and they are given the false ego, the mind, intelligence and the senses, so that they can engage in various kind of activities to satisfy. Yet at the same time, it is not the living entity performing the activities, it is the material energy performing the activities. Ahankara vibuddhatma karta hamiti manyate. So a person in illusion thinks that I am the one who is doing. Maya dhakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam. Right? Lord Kṛṣṇa is saying that under my direction, this material energy is carrying out various activities. Now sometimes people use this as a scapegoat. They say, okay, if everything is done by the material energy, then why am I getting punished? Very simple example. If you are driving the car and you hit another car, by mistake, who is going to pay for it? Who is going to be punished if there is a punishment, or is going to be, penalty that you have to pay? Who should be paying? Should it be your car paying, or should it be the driver who was driving the car? Of course, it has to be you, the driver of the car. Similarly, we are sitting in this body. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridadeshe arjuna tishtati brahmyan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani maya. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridadeshe arjuna tishtati. In Bhagavad Gita 18 chapter 61st verse, Lord Kṛṣṇa is revealing that I am residing as super soul, as Paramatma in every living entity's heart. Hridadeshe arjuna tishtati. So where is he residing? In our heart. Brahmyan sarva bhutani, yet yantra rurhani maya, yet the living entity is, having this yantra, this body, right, made up of this material energy, and he is constantly wandering in this material universe. So that has been revealed. So we have to understand in the right perspective that we are actually having these desires, and Lord Kṛṣṇa is in the form of Paramatma sitting. So he has expanded himself as Paramatma. He is sitting in every living entity's heart. So he is also in our heart. And he is, as overseer and permitter, allowing the various desires to be fulfilled. And whenever a desire is being fulfilled, or whatever is coming as a reaction, is actually for our benefit. But because we are conditioned, we think of something as good and another thing as bad. But people who are smart, they understand that it is best to take shelter of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So smart people follow smart mantra. And what's that smart mantra? Smartavyo satatam Vishnu vismartavyo na jatu chet sarve vidhi nishedasyo retayo reva kinkara. Right? Always remember Kṛṣṇa, never forget Kṛṣṇa. All other rules and regulations are just subservient to these two principles. So there are two principles. So when we follow these two principles, we understand that our benefit is in serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa the way He desires. And that's why we need to understand how to eternally serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. For that, the process has been defined. Tad vidhi pradipatena pariprashnena sevaya updekshyanti tajjnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. As per the process, tad vidhi. Right? We have to take shelter, of a bona fide spiritual master and inquire from him submissively and serve him, and he would reveal the truth because he has seen it. So this is what Lord Kṛṣṇa is revealing to Arjuna. So that is for our benefit, that we take his instructions at heart and we follow them, with the right mindset, with the right, with gratefulness, because he is so wonderful that he has provided us a path to go back home, back to Godhead, to stop all the suffering in this material world. So we talked about the gold and earth analogy, and similarly we talked about the sun. When the sun rises, the fog dissipates. So in this manner, one can very easily come to the proper realization. Now, given this, again, in this chapter, it has been, just like we talked about the spider and the spider web, Lord Kṛṣṇa elaborately explaining that, of course, He is the subtlest of all things, right? So, as He expands, various elements, various energies, they manifest and they become grosser and grosser, right? So this is a transformation of His energies, His potencies. And finally it comes to the level of gross. So we kind of like in a summary covered that. But the reverse happens when at the time of destruction. So it is again just a transformation of energy is happening. It is not that it's getting destroyed, it's just getting transformed and merging into the subtler and subtler form. Finally everything merges into Him. So when we understand from this perspective, we can understand as how various kind of planets are born, they appear, how Lord, as in the secondary creation phase, where He is in this undercar, right? So again, in the Shastras, when it has been described that this universe, in this universe, the secondary, in the material universe, with this place where Lord Himself is residing, and from His navel sprouts this lotus, and Lord Brahma is there, and then the secondary creation happens, and then invoked by Lord Sāṅkhya, Lord Shiva, His presiding deity is Lord Shiva is constantly meditating on Sāṅkhya. So all the material universes are carried on the hoods of Lord Sāṅkhya, and these material universes have different planetary systems. So the higher planetary systems are for the demigods and the great sages and so forth. So Tapolok, Mahalok, Janalok and Satyalok, they have been discussed. Then there are earthly planets like this planet Earth, where the human beings reside. And then there are intermediary planets where there are higher beings and some like Kim Purushas and similar other beings reside, as well as ghosts and spirits, they reside. And then below these earthly planets are the lower planetary systems like Patal and others, where demons as well as the snakes, Nagas, Naglok and so forth, they reside. So they are lower living entities. And then below these 14 planetary systems are 28 hellish planets. So again, that is different. Now, when you talk about 28 hellish planets, those are only for human beings, right? For all other 8.4 millions of them, 8 million type of living entities, which are in the form of aquatics, birds, trees, mountains, and so forth, they don't go through hellish planets. It is only living entities because of the impious activities that being the sinful acts. So when they are not able to properly perform penances and nullify them in the life, then one has to go through the hellish planets. Yet at the same time, Acharyas have also said, yes, those are 28 hellish planets where different kind of hellish arrangements are done, but getting the material body itself is a hellish condition, right? Because we become conditioned by this material body. When we get the body of a man, we behave like a man. When we get a body of a woman, we behave like a woman. When we get a body of a dog, the living entity, it cannot behave in its original consciousness because it's completely conditioned, so it behaves like a dog. However, a devotee of the Lord sometimes can have the mercy of the Lord so that they remember what they were, just like Prahlad Maharaj. Even when at the last moment of his life, he was remembering Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So as he was remembering the deer. So he got the body of a deer. He could not remember Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. He got the body of a deer because at the last moment of his life, at the moment of death, he remembered the deer he was taking care of, his pet deer. So he got the body of a deer, but by Lord Krishna's mercy, his memory was intact. So he remembered that, yes, I was the emperor of the world. Yet at the same time, I fell down. And so he constantly meditated on and engaged in satsanga, sadhu sangha. He always sought that and stayed at the ashrams of the saintly persons. So in his next life, he was born as Jad Bharat in the family of a Brahman, who was also a Pandit. And then he was able to go back home in that life, back to Godhead, by remembering Lord at the last moment of his life. So that is the purpose. Yet at the same time, we have to understand the purpose of this material world, why this material world exists, what do we go through in this material world, and what is the purpose of our life? Why are we here? Why are we suffering? Why is there suffering in this world? Why is there constant anxiety in this world? And why are things always transforming? So that's the nature of this material world, transformation. So change is the only constant, as we know, Aristotle said that. And from that perspective, when we understand that we have the right perception. Now there are two things I would like to cover. First is that today also happens to be Bhadra Purnima. Oh, yes. So first is, to be able to deliver this, we talked about that mind is our best friend. And for that, Acharyas have given some nice prayers. So let's cover one of those prayers. Bhajahu re mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charana Ravindare. Bhajahu re mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charana Ravindare. Dullabha manava janama sasange. Dullabha manava janama sasange. Tarahu re bhava sindhure. Tarahu re bhava sindhure. Shita atapa vatavarishana yedinayamini jagire. Shita atapa vatavarishana yedinayamini jagire. Viphala se vinu kripana durjana. Viphala se vinu kripana durjana. Chapala sukha labha lagire. Chapala sukha labha lagire. Ye dhana yavana putra parijana ite kiya che parati tire. Ye dhana yavana putra parijana ite kiya che parati tire. Kamal dal jala jivana talamala. Kamal dal jala jivana talamala. Bhajahu hari pada nitire. Bhajahu Haripada Nitire Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare Pujana Sakhi Jana Atma Nivedana Pujana Sakhi Jana Atma Nivedana Govinda Dasa Bhilashre Govinda Dasa Bhilashre Bhajahu Re Mana Shinandanandana Abhaya Charana Ravindare Bhajahu Re Manashi Nandanandana Abhaya Charana Vindare. So my dear mind, constantly meditate on remembering Shri Nandanandana, the son of Nanda Maharaj, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So today we covered at length how we take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa and how we surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. More important than how is, to understand how, first we have to understand, how refers to the process, right? But what is the real cause? The causes are suffering. We will be suffering if we don't serve. So the only shelter is at His lotus feet. So if we want to stop our suffering, we want to attain the purpose of this life, we want to attain the goal of our life, then we have to serve. And how is also given in the 9 processes. So those are the processes. Shravana Kirtana Smara Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare. Right? Pujana Sakhijana Atma Nivedana Govinda Dasa Bhilashre. So here in this prayer, Govinda Das is singing that please, my dear mind, engage in the 9 processes of devotional service. So that is how aspect. But what is going on has been described as that if we don't do this, then we are serving the miserly people, people who are wicked, because they are engaged in fruitive activities, they are going to exploit. And that is the nature of this material world. People are, when they are conditioned, they exploit people and they love things. And such is the sorry state of this material world. Rather, we should understand that by loving God, we love people. And we use things in serving the Lord and His devotees. So that is the purpose. The things are meant to be engaged in serving the Lordship, while people are supposed to be engaged together in chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and follow the various processes of devotional service. Now that is the true essence of life. So we have to understand this. And this is the what aspect, that, what is it that we are suffering, going through, and why are we going through this? Why is the most important aspect. So we should always start with why, the end in mind. That we are in this material world, we are suffering and we want to get out of this suffering, and there is only one solution, that we serve Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So now we have to take the process, follow the process, and serve Him as He desires. So this is how we surrender to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Now I do want to identify the glories of today's opportunity. So today is Bhadra Purnima. So on this particular occasion in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is an amazing blessing given. So the blessing is Pashta Padyam Purnamasyam Hema Simha Samanvitam Dadati Yo Bhagavatam Sayati Paramam Gatim. So here, if on the full moon day, which is Bhadra Purnima, during the month of Bhadra, this day, if one places Srimad Bhagavatam on a golden throne and gives it as a gift, that person will attain the supreme transcendental destination. Now this is a great blessing. Why? Because first of all, in our times, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, so many copies of Srimad Bhagavatam is available. when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present, at that time, it was very difficult to find Srimad Bhagavatam. Even when Srila Prabhupada was looking to translate Srimad Bhagavatam, all 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam were very difficult to find. And back in 1970s, now you have to look at it. If you're looking at monetary aspect, back in 1970s, Srila Prabhupada, one gentleman, he said that he has Srimad Bhagavatam, the Sanskrit version. And Srila Prabhupada sent one of his disciples, and they offered 1,000 rupees back in 1970s, as well as, what did they say? The life membership, which was equal to 1,100 rupees. So this is what was, he had to pay. And it was after great difficulty that he was able to obtain that Srimad Bhagavatam. But he translated Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different from Lord Kṛṣṇa. So when Srimad Bhagavatam comes at your home, there cannot be anything better, because that makes your home itself a dham. And when you give Srimad Bhagavatam as a gift to someone on a golden throne, right, then it gives you the supreme destination. And there is nothing in this material world that can give you the supreme destination. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental. Right? This is transcendental knowledge. This is none other than Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. He appears in 3 forms. In his Archvigra form, the deity form, he appears as Srimad Bhagavatam, and he appears in his holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So here, today we covered the philosophy of Sāṅkhya at a high level, just to understand the aspects, so that we can properly appreciate why this material universe is created. And we engage in devotional service, and that is the glories of devotional service, that by engaging in devotional service we can go back home, back to Godhead. Simply by following Lord's instructions as He desires, right? So that is also very important for us to take to. And today, Srimad Bhagavatam, if anybody gives Srimad Bhagavatam to others, by placing it in a golden throne, so that itself would result in getting to the supreme destination. So you can imagine, can you get the husband of the goddess of fortune just by giving a little bit of your fortune that you may have gathered by, your various activities or by the providence? So it is a great opportunity today for folks to go and give Srimad Bhagavatam. And it has been made so much easier. Means again, look at the price. It's hardly any price compared to how difficult it was to get Srimad Bhagavatam in old times. It is so much easier nowadays to get. And Srimad Bhagavatam has been translated in English and different languages, so that people can actually understand it. We do not have the intelligence at this time to really understand it. Not everyone can understand the Sanskrit version, but Sanskrit is made easy by Srila Prabhupada with all the translations here in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada, when he came to US, in true sense, he reveals to us that actually it was Srimad Bhagavatam that came to US. Srila Prabhupada just came along with it. Right? So it was Kṛṣṇa, he wanted to come to US. He wanted to come to the West. And Srila Prabhupada was accompanying him, sharing the message. He was just the carrier. Just like Uddhava in 11th Canto in UDDHAVA Gita, he receives the message and he's the carrier of that message. So it is actually Lord Kṛṣṇa. He's taking with him that he's delivering to Nar Narayan Rishis. So that is the true essence, in our life, that we should understand that devotional service is paramount. And to get devotional service, the process is very easy. All we have to do it is attentively, in the mood of humility and understanding with tolerance, in the mood of love, in the mood of gratitude, just ready to give all respects but not expecting any respects, raise our hand and chant, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Please join us for Nasimha Devati. Kantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Kore Vaishnavind ki jai. Hare Krishna. So please just sing along with us. We'll just cover it once itself.
सिंहदेव भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, शीला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.